completely left field, out of your control, that might just put your business in difficulty. So you've got to think about the future and try and future-proof as best you can, and think about making sure your business can ride the storm.
Thank you for joining another podcast episode of Beyond the Business. Today we've got Paul at Federation of Small Businesses. How you doing, Paul? You okay?
Hi, Az, I'm great, thank you.
Great to get you on here today. So I just want to talk a little bit about, first and foremost, Federation of Small Businesses, because I know they're a great sport for a lot of businesses out there, especially the SME market for yourself. Do you want to just give us a little bit of a background of what Federation of Small Businesses do and how you work ultimately?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So Federation of Small Businesses, FSB as we're known for short, we're a membership organisation basically for anyone who's an entrepreneur or running a small business. We provide a range of services which can help you to basically just get on with the day-to-day running of your business, not worry about a lot of the things that might need to be taken care of in the background. So we've been around since 1974, so we're nearly 50 years now. We're actually set up in Lancashire. A lot of people don't know that. So the first ever meeting of FSB was at the Tickle Trout, just near Preston, to help businesses who had some issues with national insurance at that time for self-employed people, and that grew into what's known as FSB today.
I don't think people realise what you actually offer as FSB, because on the face of it, it's for small businesses. But when you log into, for example, your portal, you've got a whole range of different things that you offer as well, from payroll all the way down to disputes with staff or employees or other businesses as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the key aspects of what we do. So we were set up as a campaigning organisation to represent small businesses, but actually over the years we've grown into almost that back office function to help with any legal issues, tax problems that businesses might be having, any HR issues that they're having with any employees in the business. So a whole range of support that people can access, and a lot of it is available, as you say, as online. You can log into it, go to your dashboard and just ask different questions, get different advice from different experts that we employ that can help you just smooth out any issues in your business.
Yeah, and I've noticed that you do have actual lawyers and solicitors there who will give you the advice, which is second to none, really, ultimately, when you're getting that advice, because you need to make sure, one, as a business owner, you're doing the right thing and the advice is accurate, ultimately, but also you're covered as a business owner. Whatever you do, you follow your rules and procedures, ultimately. Yeah,
that's exactly it. So if you're running a small business, you've maybe got a handful of staff, you're good at what you do, you know that product or service that you've got, you know how to sell it, you know how to make a bit of money from it, but you might not be an expert in all those legal issues that can come up, or the things in the back office that you might need some help with. So that's what we do. We fill in those gaps for people, let them focus on running the business, take away all those worries for them.
I mean, we see that a lot with business owners, especially with what we do here at Business Helpline. We see a lot of business owners who are fantastic plumbers or fantastic electricians, and they're really, really good at what they do, and they're really, really good at bringing the business in. But actually running the business itself, so having an account or HR, etc., that's totally different kettle of fish, and that's not obviously their forte. So essentially, that's when a lot of businesses do start to struggle, and they don't follow certain rules, procedures for staffing, or whether or not it be for tax or whatever it will be. That is when obviously someone like yourself would be great to just get involved with a lot of the businesses at that time.
Exactly, and that's where we tend to fit. You know, some of the bigger businesses out there, they don't need what we offer because they've got it themselves. They've employed their own people to do that. But when you started a business or growing a business, you can't afford to employ all those people in those roles, but you do still need the support. So it's a really cost-effective way of making sure that you've got that cover for your business if anything goes wrong.
Yeah, I mean, we use FSB, so I can only praise you for the service that you offer to ourselves as well at the same time. In relation to yourself, then, I mean, how did you get involved with the FSB?
So I've been the development manager for Lancashire and Cumbria since 2011, so 11 and a bit years now I've been with the organisation. And I'm an employee, so I've done different things in the past. I've never actually run my own business, but I've worked on a lot of different programs that have helped people in business. So I've worked for chambers of commerce. I've helped people to start up in business on an enterprise scheme I used to work on over in West Yorkshire. So lots of different things that kind of predated my involvement with FSB, but as a role, it's been a great fit for me. It's allowed me to work alongside businesses, allowing them to grow, getting them access to the support that they need. So, that's how I initially got involved back in 2011. I applied for a job with them and really grown into it over that time.
And obviously, so firsthand, you'll see the needs of business on how things have changed in business probably over the last 10 years, especially since pre-pandemic and post-pandemic where we are right now. Obviously, in relation to the businesses, especially small businesses in, I won't say local area, but all over the country, essentially. What has changed, would you say, drastically, or what's different in business? And I'm probably going to say pre and then post-pandemic, ultimately, because that's the only thing we can judge off right now.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think a lot of people who were running great little businesses, before the pandemic have found it a real struggle since then, because when everything's going well and you've got a consumer that's got disposable income, money to spend, you're doing okay. It's not, times were good, weren't they? And we maybe didn't appreciate it at the time quite how good things were. But I think a lot of people in smaller businesses have realised that it can be really tough, not just financially but mentally as well. In terms of the stress that people have been under. So I think a lot of businesses in the last 3 or 4 years have realised that they need to be prepared for things that they're not expecting in business. You've got to have a bit of a plan B sometimes. And I think the businesses that have pivoted have done that, and others are realising they need a plan B of some kind now.
I think there's been two things ultimately. One has been a change in mindset of individuals in regards to spending habits, because obviously we were locked down for so long, and then opened up, and there was a little bit of a spurt at that time of spending, and everybody went out and did what they did. But then obviously now we're seeing that essentially you look at the economy, you look at things going up like gas and electricity prices, the cost of living going up, everything's squeezed, so there's less money to spend as well with small businesses. So it's not just a case of a small business has been hampered by their own rising cost for your, I don't know, let's take a perfect example of a restaurant or a takeaway. You've got your gas and electricity going up. You've probably got your cost of oil going up. Them putting their prices up, then trying to sell the food, which is going to be very, very difficult because there's less people spending more and more money out there. How do businesses combat something like this as well at the same time?
It's really difficult, isn't it? You've got to kind of look at where you can make differences in your operating model, really. Businesses in the early 2000s went through a period, particularly manufacturing businesses, of being more lean. So they stripped away, a lot of the waste, and they were operating very, very efficiently. But there's probably the need for all businesses to do that now. So where can you make savings? Do you need to have all your equipment on all the time, in terms of the electricity or the gas costs? If you don't, then, don't have it. Do you need all the equipment even? If you can manage with less of the machinery that's using all the electricity, then maybe that's a way forward. So different operating models, I think a lot of businesses are needing to look at now, but also looking at new markets as well. You can't rest on your laurels in business at the moment, because you don't know when things are going to come from completely left field, out of your control, that might just put your business in difficulty. So you've got to think about the future and try and future-proof as best you can, and think about making sure your business can ride the storm. I think we've seen through COVID that businesses have been really stretched. A lot of them are not in a position to borrow anymore. And they are, they're just desperately trying to get these costs under control. But it is really difficult. It's really difficult to do when things are going up by the level of increases that we're hearing about. And as you say, it's very difficult to pass those on to customers when they're looking to cut back. So it's definitely a real challenge for businesses at the moment.
I think one of the telltale signs of the economy, and we're not just trying to make this all doom and gloom, but one of the telltale signs what we've seen is obviously people borrowing for cash flow as well, and which obviously will only last for so long. Now, if you do get that bad month where you can't pay that money back, and that's when you will start to suffer from that ultimately as well. But it is a bit of a telltale sign of where we are as an economy ultimately, and where small businesses are as well, really.
Yeah, definitely. Really challenging, and borrowing for cash flow is not something you can do in the longer term. You can do it as an emergency measure, but borrowing should be for growth, really, should be for driving your business forward, if it's all possible. But a lot of businesses just in that position at the moment, just trying to keep their heads above water. So do understand why people look at that.
Yeah. Is there anything, do you believe, that the government can do to support small businesses a little bit more than they are doing at the moment in time?
So the couple of areas that we've been asking for them to support on, and they have announced the support on, one is the energy support that you mentioned. That's only limiting the pain, though. It's not solving the problem. And as you say, it's only for a short period of time. So as things stand at the end of March, those problems come back. Even bigger than they are now, potentially, depending on where we are. Does
that potentially, in a sense, push on the problem for 6 months, let's say, for example? Is that what that's doing, or do you think that'll help people get through a rocky patch and then hopefully have a good summer, essentially? I don't know how that would work, really, for a lot of businesses.
I think the hope is that, obviously, in winter time, you use more gas, you use more electric because of the weather, because of the lack of daylight. So the hope is if we get through that, until springtime, let's hope that come springtime, we don't need to use as much, and therefore it won't be as much demand in that summer period. But depending on what business you're in, you're still going to need to do that. If you're a hospitality business, you need the amount of gas and electric you need to do your cooking, basically, don't you? So you're still going to need that. So it'd be a big challenge. We want to see that support extended. At the moment, the government are talking about doing a review before the end of the year so that they can decide what happens after March. But I agree with you, as it's difficult to see what they're going to do at the moment, because they're in so much debt in terms of the government debt through COVID. That they don't really have a lot to play with there. So it is going to be difficult. The other areas we think they can help on are maybe further support on national insurance for employers. So maybe reduce the amount of national insurance. That keeps more people in work, means the government doesn't have to pay benefits to as many people. And also maybe look at business rates as well. I mean, a lot of smaller businesses don't pay any rates at the moment. But as you start to get over a certain threshold of maybe 18,000, you're paying full rates then. And that can be quite a few £1,000s. So there might be something we can do there that can help those businesses and alleviate some of those costs.
Yeah, I mean, the one other thing, I did a podcast with a local business not long ago, and just the rise in national insurance was costing that business, I wouldn't say it's a small business really, it's costing that business £500,000 a year, just the rise in national insurance. Now, ultimately, that cost is going on to the business, essentially what the government's laying back onto them, essentially, which is very, very difficult. And maybe there needs to be some sort of support in that area as well at the same time. Unfortunately, all I can see what would happen in that instance, if you're putting that cost burden onto a business and they're already struggling, unfortunately what's going to happen, they're going to have to turn around and say, well, unfortunately we can't employ you, we're going to have to reduce your hours, really, as an employee. So that could also have a knock-on effect or an adverse reaction to what they're actually looking to do with that as well at the same time.
Exactly. We've seen some of that already from particularly hospitality businesses who are, saying, well, we can't afford to have all our staff on if our customers are stopping spending the money that they were. So going down to 8 staff from 10, for example, or just reducing hours to 25 from 40, just to try and keep their heads above water. So I think we will probably see some more of that kind of thinking in the new year. Yeah.
And if that happens, then there's less money to spend in the economy because there's less people employed, unfortunately. And that's where, obviously, maybe there needs to be that additional support for businesses. But I definitely take into consideration what you're saying with the national insurance reduction. There definitely needs to be support in that area as well at the same time. But, I mean, even coming back to the energy cost, is there something that business can do, I don't know, from an energy efficient way to reduce their cost, or can they get involved in certain schemes that you're holding?
I mean, obviously, in terms of energy efficiency, you need to try and, in the medium term, you need to look at what machinery you're using that might be able to be more energy efficient, whether that's vehicles in terms of traveling around, or whether it's things that you're using in your restaurant, or whatever it might be, different ways of cooking food, for example. There will be things like that you can look at. The problem that businesses have got now is that if you need to buy that equipment, you've got to find that upfront cost to do that. So, and at the moment, you don't have the money to do it. It's a bit like with the the air source heat pumps, and the looking at different ways of keeping your premises warm, for example.
Yeah.
You can cut your costs, but you might have to pay out a few thousand to start with to get the new boiler or whatever it might be to make you more efficient. So it's a bit of a catch-22 situation, particularly for a small business.
Potentially there could be something there where they can bring that into play, where, I don't know, they offer some sort of grant or support to do that, to give you a long-term stability in regards to your energy costs, ultimately a reduction there. I definitely think that potentially is something they could do really as a business.
Yeah, we've had a couple of schemes actually in Lancashire around both energy audit support to look at what you're using and where you can cut back, but also some small grants towards equipment as well. Now, unfortunately, the grants have kind of been used up in the last year or so, but there's still the energy audit advice. So yeah, maybe a wider scheme to look at some more support there would be a good idea.
On more of a positive note, because it sounds like it's really difficult, because obviously the economy is as such at the moment, and it's difficult for a lot of businesses. I mean, what do you see positive going on in the economy, and what's happening in the business world at the minute?
So there are still opportunities. There are still customers with disposable income.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of businesses, they need to refocus on who those customers are and seeing if they can attract them to spend in their business. Now, some of those businesses, some of those customers as well, are actually going to be, some of the customers are going to be overseas. So there's definitely opportunities at the moment. If you're a small business that might have a product or even a service that might be of interest to people abroad, there are different countries are coping in different ways with the current crisis in terms of energy. So there's definitely the opportunity to look at new markets. So we would say that is one area, but also there are still strengths. I mean, if you look at the northwest of England, you look at Lancashire, we've still got the aerospace work going on at BAE, at Samsbury. So there's a lot of investment going into there, and there's supply chains there. If you can get in those supply chains, work within them, there's still going to be business being done. So businesses need to look at where the growth areas are, where the reliable work is coming from. And there is still a lot of that out there.
Well, touching back on to what you're saying about energy saving work or cost, I was with Saffron, who are big in the aerospace, and they're doing a little bit of work with Business Wise, and what they were doing was certain machinery had sensors on. And they were looking at what machine was used at what time, how it was used, and they were looking at ways of reducing the cost, and even all the way down to certain machines were on over the weekend, turn them down, turn them off, and they had like energy graphs, and it was really precision in regards to very, very precise for what they were doing with the energy side of it. But they were saving X amount of money a year ultimately by doing that. But they had to do that additional outlay and cost to get to that point as well at the same time.
Yeah, that's a really good example of what any business on any scale can do, that kind of audit. Some of them might need some support to do it, but it's a really good starting point to see where there might be opportunities for you to reduce your usage. But in the medium term, it is around, let's hope the technology gets developed so that, for example, the vehicles that we use are more fuel efficient, that they don't need to use as much, whether that's electric vehicles or different vehicles, finding different ways of being powered. So we've not got that reliance on gas and electric. I think that's really what we need to do in the medium term.
Yeah. I mean, I have an electric vehicle, and I don't think we're ready for everybody to have an electric vehicle right now, because sometimes when you do pull up at a petrol station or wherever it will be to charge your car, they've only got 2 ports, and then there's 3 or 4 people there to, charge the car up. So I don't think the infrastructure's there right now for us to do that. The only way it's going to work is that obviously, I know they've offered grants for people to charge your car at home, all that kind of stuff. And luckily we've got an office where we've got charging points outside our office, and that works ultimately. But also as well, if you're going to use your vehicle on a day-to-day basis on long journeys, then also maybe a consideration of maybe looking at a hybrid than an actual fully electric vehicle as well.
Yeah, I think in the medium term, do we need? Is there a different way of delivering that same outcome, which is, can we use batteries in the way that we use batteries in more like in a remote control? So, can you just put a battery in and then recycle that battery and recharge it? as the costs come down, that might become more viable as the technology improves, rather than have to leave your vehicle stationary for a period of time to charge it up at a charging point. A different way of thinking might be the way, might actually be the better way of doing it. The cost in rolling out all those, charging points is going to be significant. So if there's a different way of delivering the same outcome, that might be a better idea in the longer term.
And in regards to businesses then, I mean, where do you see the real biggest challenge being in the next year? So let's say 2023, what would you say the biggest challenge for businesses will be?
It is going to be pivoting, finding those new markets, making sure that your business is fit for purpose in the future. And all businesses need to do that. I think a lot of them have been fortunate enough pre-COVID that you didn't really need to do it and you could do okay. No. Now I think you've absolutely got to do that. You can't wait around for things to improve because there's no guarantee they will do. You've always got to be looking at developing your products and service and where's the profitable market going to be for you in the future. That's the real challenge, the real opportunity as well, though.
I mean, are you as FSB, are there any conversations in the background that give us an indication where the economy is going to be probably in 2023, essentially?
Difficult to say, isn't it? Because I think a lot of the factors are international at the moment.
Yeah.
Particularly on the energy side of things. So where will we be in terms of Russia and Ukraine next year? Really difficult to say. I think the only things that we do know are that the government are in a pretty limited position in terms of the financial support they can offer businesses. And we know that consumers are going to continue to be stretched at the moment. So if you're relying on consumer spending directly into your business, it's going to be a challenging time. Albeit, the more affluent areas, customers that are more well off, are still going to have money to spend. So you've got to try and look at where the opportunities are to work with people that are going to be less impacted.
Do you think that, and this is something off the cuff really, do you think Brexit's affected certain scenarios such as energy costs and even import and export really big?
It certainly has, but I think it's exacerbated by the current problems as well. So you look at import and export, we know the paperwork was confusing for people, and we know of businesses that said it's costing us too much money. We're not going, we're not going to do it. So they've stopped exporting, and they've not necessarily been able to replace that business from elsewhere. But we also know that Brexit impacted a lot in terms of the loss of labour. So look at the staff shortages a lot of businesses have had at points this year. And just think about the thousands of people that have returned to their native country in Europe, perhaps. We just don't have that labour supply. We've also lost a lot of business. A lot of people in their 50s have dropped out of the labour market completely. So it's got a really difficult recruitment market at the moment. If you want to get new staff, it's really competitive.
I think it is as well. I think going back to people in the 50s, I think one thing they've been through COVID, and I think what that has done is probably change people's mindset, really, where they want to be and what's going on in life. So we do see that as a business here in general as well. But also recruitment is probably one of the most difficult sectors for a lot of businesses right now. I think there is positions there and there is a lot of jobs available, but also it's getting the people in the right mindset to be able to do them particular jobs as well at the same time, because there were people coming from abroad who would very easily do that job tomorrow. But I don't think from a historical perspective, we've been doing them jobs from day one, essentially, as a country or people within this country itself. So then it's just getting people's mindset or getting people work fit for that environment as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, a lot of the people in their 50s have decided to draw down pension early if they can, or they're using the equity in their house rather than go back into work because they've just reprioritised what they want to do with their life, or they've got caring responsibilities. Long COVID, we hear about a lot. So there's a whole range of reasons, but people are wanting to work from home more. So they're not necessarily wanting to work in environments like hospitality or care homes, which is where a lot of the vacancies are in those particular types of sectors. So it's even harder for those businesses, which don't necessarily pay the best. in all cases.
Well, they would have a lot of people coming from abroad and fill their vacancies at the time as well.
Exactly, it's a double whammy, isn't it, for those businesses? Really. They've lost that foreign workforce, but they're not able to replace it internally for reasons quite often relating to COVID. And the younger people coming through are not wanting to maybe go into those sectors as a career. They might view hospitality as an option, as a part-time job or something of that nature, but maybe not as a career. It certainly could do, though. There's a lot of people who've gone through working in cafes, restaurants, pubs, have gone on to run those types of businesses. It's a really great way to actually get into running a business at a grassroots level without having to go to university. So there are progression routes there, but maybe they need explaining a little bit better to young people.
Yeah, and I think maybe there needs to be a little bit more support in regards to getting younger people within an employment environment as well at the same time, because it's all about your work experience as well at the same time. And as a young 16-year-old kid, you're going to go to a lot of businesses and you're not going to like a lot of jobs, but then something will hit and you think, oh, I like doing this. And then they can hopefully build a career within that sector as well at the same time. And maybe that's what we are missing a little bit of as well.
There's a lot of that work does happen. I mean, Lancashire's got a careers hub that does some brilliant work in that area. So they're linking businesses in with schools, trying to get activities going so young people know what their opportunities are going forward. But it's very, it's difficult to do. We need more of that for young people. They need to be able to taste different experiences within different businesses so they understand what their options are. But, it's just another complication. The curriculum in schools is so busy. A lot of them are focused on academic achievement rather than getting people ready for work. So there's a balance there to be struck as well.
I don't look old enough, but I do have a 16-year-old lad, he, if you look at the curriculum and look at the environment, I was looking at them, getting them through school. That's one example. But are they work ready? Are they ready for life? No, they're not ready for life in regards to what they learn at school. And I've always been a big believer in one, we don't educate about money. Ultimately, we don't educate about business. And them are the two key factors what essentially people are going to do out of work. Even going back to money, a young 16-year-old kid doesn't get taught at school really, and especially in my day we definitely weren't taught, is what happens with things like your credit rating, how important it is to keep up your credit rating, how do you manage your money, how do you do things like a simple income and expenditure to work out, right, okay, have I got enough money this week to spend, have I got disposable income, can I do these kind of things, and then obviously it's then getting them into a work environment as well at the same time and talking about the importance of money. And maybe that needs to be more of an ethos in them, really definitely in the final year of school, that they need to be leaving with them more work related skills, but real life skills as well at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, maybe more young people would find maths lessons interesting if they understand how it related to like the real world. So how they budget, how if they get a salary of £200-300 a week, where you've got to spend that, how long you've got to make that last for to bring it to life. I think that's the bit we're still missing, isn't it? It's too much of the academic at the moment, and it doesn't translate into how you use those skills and what you learn in a real environment. So I think you're absolutely right.
We see it a lot, really. And obviously, I've been in the debt industry for near on 20 years now, and you do see a lot of people who are in debt or deal with problem debt. Historically, what they've not done is from day one, being very young, they haven't had that financial education, and which I do believe that everybody should have. They should be able to educate to a certain standard, at least know, well, hold on a minute. How do I manage my money first and foremost? Even if you did your financial plan on yourself or you did income and expenditure, and talk about, things like credit cards. Do you need a credit card? Because obviously, credit cards are offered, every day to somebody ultimately, but they don't need a credit card. All they probably need to do is manage the money, and they don't just spend on credit essentially. But once you get one credit card and then you get into the cycle of debt, you start borrowing some more, and then unfortunately you get to a position where you're overspending.
It's about, from a business point of view, it's about doing it responsibly, isn't it? I mean, you see some of the options now on online websites where you can check out, and it's, do you want to pay in 3 monthly installments rather than pay up front? And you can see why some people would be encouraged down that route.
One big thing that we're trying to really champion in a way is the fact that there needs to be a little bit more education for business owners and directors, because and that's all comes back down to managing money, and you're doing what you're good at. And we touched on it earlier in this conversation that you might be a great builder, but you don't know how to manage certain financial aspects of your business, and that's where I do believe there needs to be additional support, or even if you become a director tomorrow, I do know there's now certain courses you can go on, and it gives you a bit of an overview. I know that's from Gov, and you can go on, it gives you a bit of an overview how to run a business, but obviously it is now very, very late in the day for them to come around now, where this could have happened 20 years ago, ultimately. But we're finding that a lot of directors are getting in trouble because what they're doing is, one, mismanaging money, and then trying to explain to a director the difference between the company being a limited company structure and you being an employee of your company, and the money what's in the business and the bank is not technically all yours. It's actually the business's money. Giving that educational scenario to a director doesn't always come across great because they've never known anything different.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely a case for businesses to use their accountant more effectively than they do at the moment. Accountants can be so much more than someone that just does your tax return at the end of the year.
Without a doubt.
It can be a really good source of support for a business, but all too often the business doesn't consult them as much as they should do, and the business doesn't know their figures sometimes, particularly smaller businesses, around their cash flow projections, etc. They leave it to an accountant, and they need to have a better handle on it themselves.
I think it's difficult for accountants as well, because an accountant will get a barrage of paper once a year and say, right, okay, can you give me a hand with this, ultimately? And it doesn't always work. And that's why you need, we have an accountant who supports our businesses, our business in particular, and they'll support us, and we'll see them probably once a month, ultimately. And they'll give us advice and guidance within the business. And I think that's what you need, because you can very easily get yourself in a position as a business is, one, overspending or even overtrade. And we do see a lot of businesses fail for overtrading because they're not ready for what's going to come through that door. And essentially, by overtrading, you're going to hit your cash flows at some point as well. In regards to businesses then going forward, I think it is really, really difficult, and it's a challenging time. And I think there's some good things and there's bad things obviously going to happen to business in 2023. Is there a particular sector that you think that obviously going to do a lot better than any other sector, or is it all just across the board?
I think it depends on what that business wants to do, really. But certainly, if you look at what the challenges are, if you can avoid having the overheads which require a lot of energy use, so if you can avoid having an office that needs to be heated all the time and have staff in there, and again the staffing issue. So if you ask me to pick one sector, I would say probably IT, creative and digital type sectors are in a relatively good position because they can work remotely. They can have staff working from home. They've got skilled staff. They've got people coming into that industry. They pay quite well. And of course, lots of other businesses are trying to go online. So there's demand for what they do. So they're definitely areas. And Lancashire's got some strength in that sector, which is good to know from a local level.
Lancashire's a very big technological hub. And I think people don't realise that. I know they look at Manchester, but when you come a little bit more north, you actually look at it properly. I think Burnley's got a very good hub for technological businesses in regards to website creation, SEO, PPC, etc. They really do have a good hub there.
Yeah, definitely. These are areas we need to focus on, really. We need to get more people able to work in those sectors, because also if you work in those sectors, you can work from anywhere. You're not restricted to having to travel to the office. There are people that work for American companies based in Lancashire and Cumbria.
They do.
And they're contracted to them, but they don't work. They just work from home. If they've got a good internet signal, and you've got the skills, you know, the world's your oyster really with a lot of that.
It's good and bad for businesses, obviously, with the economy as it is at the moment in time. I mean, what advice would you give to business owners for 2023?
The best advice I would give is don't struggle on your own. Get support. There's loads of support out there for your business. Whether that's through FSB, whether it's through Business Helpline, whether it's through Boost Business Lancashire, their advisors that they've got. Don't struggle on your own as a business, because there is support out there. So the earlier you get that support, the better chance you've got of making a success of things.
Yeah, I mean, let me just ratify that, because obviously we help and advise businesses, and we do see a lot of business owners come to us as a last resort. Now, we always say that, you know, if this business came to us 6 months prior to they did come to us, there'd be a lot more we could have done for that business at that time, because unfortunately 6 months further down the line, as a director, you've probably put your own personal funds into the business to try to get it to survive. You've cut certain corners you've had to cut, you've had to lay certain staff off, whatever has gone on within that last 6 months. Taking advice early on, it will, it could definitely help your business survive more than anything, I think, really, ultimately. Or it could actually put you in a position where you're not financially indebted personally into the business as well, because if a business is at that stage and it's going to close, let's say for tomorrow, you getting money back from that business, what you've put in yourself, whether it's £50,000 or £100,000, is going to be very, very difficult. So I think the key is really getting advice early. A lot of the time the head's in the sand scenario, because what you're doing is fighting fires in a business, and you're trying to get your cash flow within the business to pay, you know, your overheads, your staff, your wages, and whatever else it would be. But sometimes as a business owner, and this is where somebody like FSB does come into play, or we would come into play, is you just need that external support. And it may just be a conversation for 30 minutes, and you might get a little bit of guidance, and you might think, well, hold on a minute, yeah, I don't know why I've not done this before. Or it might just need to sit back a little bit and think, well, you know, can I carry on doing what I'm doing, essentially? Because it not just has an impact on your business, but has an impact massively on an individual director's mental health as well at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. The mental health thing shouldn't be underestimated. And the sooner you get help for that issue with your business, you're going to alleviate a lot of that stress you've been under, because there are solutions you can look at. There are ways out of the difficulties you might be in, but the longer you don't confront them, you know, the more difficult it's going to be for you and for your mental health. So yeah. Absolutely.
Definitely when we speak to people, and every time they say to us, well, I don't know why I've not done that before, because we leave it the pressure, and it's a conversation, it's something playing on your mind, you might not be able to sleep on that, whatever else it would be. It's just a conversation really, and it's opening up a little bit more, and just talking about your scenario. And our job is then to figure out what options you have, how we can resolve that, and what ways you can do this really, and together, effectively, whether or not that's closing your business, whether or not it's continued trading, whether or not that's you getting additional support, or whether or not there's restructuring your business, or whatever it would be. You know, our advice is free. So it's really about just sometimes just having that conversation, having a meeting, having a face-to-face, having a phone call or a Zoom, whatever it would be. And it's just getting what's on your chest out a little bit really, and then just saying, this is my situation, can you help? And you'll be quite pleasantly surprised about all the options people have available, and I don't think they realise that as well at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just before you go, how do directors contact for small businesses?
So the best way initially is just through our website, which is fsb.org.uk. Once you go on the website, you can see loads of the free resources we've got for businesses. You can also find out about the benefits of membership and set up a call with one of our advisors if you want to find out how it can help you and your business.
Fantastic. Well, Paul, it's been great to have you on today. Again, if you need any help with your business in regards to advice or restructure, please contact Business Helpline. But also, if you need any help with your business in regards to anywhere from HR to a legal matter, please look at getting signed up with for small businesses. Thank you for your time today, Paul.
Thanks. That was great to see you.
Thank you. No problem, mate.